with an AEW star hinting at a gimmick change and more. This is Wrestling Hub. My name is John and you're watching the Wrestling Report for December 4th. Before we get into the rest of the video, make sure you subscribe to Wrestling Hub and turn on all notifications to stay up to date with everything in the world of pro wrestling. Also, don't forget to follow us on Instagram at Wrestling Hub Official and also follow us on Twitter at Wrestling_Hub. With him currently in a feud with one of the all-time greats in CM Punk, MJF sat down on Busted Open Radio to make it clear he does not need to wrestle as often as most, with him claiming he's an attraction. I only wrestle when it behooves me to wrestle. I find that a lot of guys in the AEW roster are wrestling because they feel the need to impress our fan base. I don't have to impress anybody. Everybody is already impressed with me. You're impressed by me the second my music hits. There is a reason that when my music hits, I get one of the loudest reactions, positive or negative, in all of wrestling. I don't have to wrestle every single week to make people feel that way to get people excited about me. I'm an attraction. I'm Andre the Giant. Apparently this year alone, MJF has only wrestled 6 singles matches, as we'll have to see how his eventual match with Punk goes. Speaking of MJF, Jim Cornette recently took to his podcast where he noted that the late great Roddy Piper would have loved him. I do think Piper would have loved him. I think he would say here is a guy who can talk, knows how to push people's buttons, and who likes to get heat. If Piper saw his matches, especially the one with Darby Allin, I think he'd have been quite impressed with that. So I have to think Roddy would be kind of relieved that somebody has come along like that who still takes the business and what they're doing in it fairly seriously, and can go out and not in the same style as Roddy, but in the same vein, rile people up on the microphone as Roddy did 40 years ago. I definitely believe he'd approve of MJF wholeheartedly. TNA's Victory Road event in 2011 is not remembered fondly by fans, as this saw one of the worst wrestling matches take place between Sting and an out-of-it Jeff Hardy. On Broken Skull Sessions, Hardy revealed this was an accident. Soma hadn't become a controlled substance yet, so I was still taking the Somas, but I do remember talking to Sting before I got too altered to even walk out there, hardly. We were going to do this spot with his finish, the Scorpion Death Drop, but my head was going to be in a chair, and I remember being scared of that. Well, it might really hurt my neck doing that, but it's going to be awesome if I don't. So yeah, I just took too much. By the time it was time for me to go out there, they had to find me. Former TNA executive producer Eric Bischoff came out there. They had to shut it down. He had to take it home real quick, and that was the right thing. They had to do it. To screw up like I did that night, it was just insane. But one positive asset that I have by looking back at that footage is so embarrassing. So, oh my god, just shameful, you know? Out there with my hero in the main event. All these people were watching, but then to do that? Following his departure from WWE, Bryan Danielson has been on a roll in AEW as he looks set to challenge Hangman Page for the world title at Winter is Coming. Speaking to TV Insider, Bryan mentioned that WWE overreacted when AEW started. I don't ever focus on if something didn't happen that already happened, but I think this is a natural reaction to what has gone on. What we do know is people who were paid regular contracts will not have them anymore. For WWE, I think there was an overreaction when AEW started, even when independent promotions got real hot with Cody and the Young Bucks. WWE felt they needed to sign up all the talent. They realized our business is fine. AEW is catching up. They've done incredible for a company that has been around for less than 3 years. WWE is still making $1 billion, so they don't need to hoard all these talent. Danielson would go on to note that he wants to make AEW must-see programming. The one show my wife and I couldn't stop watching was Game of Thrones. It just made you come back every week, helping AEW want to help that need for viewers to come back every week. I think they've already created the best wrestling product in the US, helping to get more fans watching and give the feeling like it's must-see television every week. Those are my overarching goals, not only for this year, but the 3 years I'm here. After making his way to AEW and having a high-profile feud with CM Punk, Eddie Kingston has bigger goals in mind, with him telling CBS Sports, new milestones of course. The goal to be the top guy in AEW. I reached one goal, I made it to AEW. Contracted, make it a living. My nephew can show people on the TNT app there's a plug, or on the AEW YouTube there's another plug. He gets to show off that his uncle is a wrestler. I reached one goal. The next goal is to be the top guy, to be the champion, to be the guy on the posters. The guy that is AEW. That's what Kenny Omega was. That's what Mox was. That was what Chris Jericho was. And that's what Hangman Adam Page is now. That's always the goal. Making his wrestling debut in '96, Charlie Haas used to compete with his younger brother until he passed away from a heart attack at the age of 27 in 2001. Haas would go on to marry fellow WWE star Jackie Gata in '05, with the couple getting divorced last year. With Chris Van Vliet, Haas touched on these events. It destroyed me. It was like the divorce from Jackie. They are your best friends. You grew up with them. He's your little brother, then you find him dead, and it's like, man, is this really happening? It was tough. It really was. But then you have to call your mom and dad and tell them that you found your brother dead. That's not good. I didn't think I was going to be able to get out of that. I didn't know how to survive that, and I didn't know what WWE would do. They signed the Haas brothers, not Charlie Haas. But thank God that Jim Ross saw that we could still do this with Charlie and Shelton Benjamin. Arn Anderson said, let me take Charlie and Shelton, and let me see what I can do with them. We basically just traveled with Arn. He put us in the ring prior to the house show matches, and in the dark matches, and he taught us everything he knew. His art was into it as much as ours was, and that was when I knew that someone really cared. He really put everything into us. Shelton was a guy who I found as a partner just like my brother. He is my brother, and it worked. Shelton had the same goal as I did, and I'm just very lucky. After having the persona of Big Money Matt with Private Party, Matt Hardy took to Twitter to let fans know that his character will be changing. I plan on gearing more towards Matt Hardy going forward. It seems the AEW audience appreciates real, so I'll focus on being more authentic. He would then post a video to clarify what he meant, with it said, anyone out there that follows Matt Hardy closely knows there's nothing I love on this planet more than my children. And I'm sure they also know that I am extremely passionate about my chosen career of professional wrestling, and it is very important to me that my children get to see the best of me as a professional wrestler, because I know my time doing this job, living this career is limited, so it's very important that I optimize every bit of it and my children experience it in real time. That's very important to me, and to do that I have to be the best version of Matt Hardy that I can possibly be. With him away from programming since the November 15th Dark Elevation, it'll be interesting to see what is next for Hardy when he returns. With him becoming the King of the Ring in October, Xavier Woods spoke to Bleacher Report about his recent push. He said as a kid he loved tag team wrestling, with him naming a surprising team that entertained him. It's been really cool, obviously because I haven't had the chance to have a singles run in the company yet, and the focus has always been on tag team wrestling. Even when I was a kid I was just obsessed with it. Billy and Chuck were my favorite tag team. I freaking love them. People always laugh when I say that, but when you go back and think about it, that was a situation where we had a team that hit the scene and it wasn't necessarily, oh, these guys are world beaters and they're going to be champions. They evolved into one of the most entertaining teams we could see, and they had a full main event segment with them getting married as partners with a reveal with Eric Bischoff. It's hard for tag teams to get that position, where they not only get to have cool matches, but where they get to be in the middle of the most important stuff on the show. While many thought Karrion Kross and Scarlett Bordeaux could have been big stars on the WWE main roster like they were on NXT, they both would end up getting cut. During a virtual meet and greet for the Asylum Wrestling store, Scarlett noted, I wasn't stressed because NXT was awesome, it really was, but I was quite bored for the last 6 months. Obviously I wasn't doing very much. I'm excited for the first time in a really long time, and I'm happy and I feel joy. I felt content at WWE, but now I feel joy and excitement. Scarlett only wrestled one match during her 2 years in WWE, WWE, which was a non-televised bout against Shotzi Blackheart in June. While she revealed she was hired to be a manager, she had aspirations to compete. So I always wanted to be able to do everything, but managing has always been my favorite thing. Originally, I was hired specifically to be a manager, which I was super excited about. Then I was always open to doing everything. I love bumping, I love wrestling, and naturally throughout every place I've worked at, eventually it transitions into wrestling. I feel like that happened with every female manager at WWE, so I just kind of naturally expected that to happen. And then when it started to come up earlier this year that I was going to start wrestling, I was like, cool, let's do it. Hell yeah. So that's kind of how it happened. While he was NXT champion, Kevin Owens made his main roster debut, starting a feud with US champ John Cena. Speaking to Rebellious Noise, Owens revealed how Cena helped him transition to the main roster. NXT was pretty instrumental in getting me ready to show up even if I was there for a short time. It made me feel ready to step up the way I did when I showed up on Raw under the biggest lens possible with Cena there. So I'm really glad I got the time I did on NXT to get ready for that mentally and feel confident in my abilities to do it. I got to spend some time over there with Dusty Rhodes, and Dusty was incredible at making people feel like they could really achieve anything. That was a great tool to have once I started here for sure. Now, many are under the impression that KO will be leaving WWE when his contract expires in January. Before that, he will be taking part in a triple threat match for the WWE title against the champion Big E and Seth Rollins at the Day 1 pay-per-view. And this was your Pro Wrestling News Update. I hope you're all having a great day. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you later.